Mana Dishome Kidawida. How are you doing? Moko mana? Mwabendelea nicha. Inimoni neko mana na pia nabendelea nicha. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Dishome Kidawida. If it is your first time here, my beautiful name is Masaka Mdawidatiki. This is where we explore, learn, and speak Kidawida. And definitely, this is one of my favorite things to do, teaching you Kidawida, teaching you the language that gives me my identity, and teaching you the language that I love most. So karibuni sana. As you can see from the title of this video, on today's episode, we are going to learn about Matuku Jumwa. That simply translates to the days of the week. So on this episode, we are going to learn about the days of the week in Kidawida. And let's get started. Aga nigo matuku mfungade ga Jumwa kwa Kidawida. Aga nigo matuku mfungade ga Jumwa kwa Kidawida. That simply translates to, these are the 7 days of the week in Kidawida. Hizi ndizo siku 7 za wiki kwa Kitaita. The first day is Monday, and we call that Kuramko Jimweri. You need to note that some of our dialects use Kuramko, some of our dialects use Kuramka, some of our dialects use Mramko, and some of our dialects use Mramka. So depending again on the region and the different dialects that each of one speaks, we can use Kuramko, Kuramka, Mramko, or Mramka. But for the sake of our learning today, let's stick to Kuramko. So Monday is Kuramko Jimweri. Tuesday is Kuramko Kabi. Wednesday is Kuramko Kadadu. Thursday is Kuramko Kana. Friday is Kuramko Kasanu. For the first 5 days of the week that I have just mentioned, there is something that you need to note. And this takes you back to our previous episode on counting, which we referred to as Kutala. The first day of the week is Kuramko Jimweri. This is simply referring back to the numbers. Jimweri comes from Imweri, which is number 1. That is Monday. Kuramko Kabi. Kabi comes from 2, which is Ibi. And then Kuramko Kadadu. Kadadu comes from 3, which is Idadu. Kuramko Kana, that is Thursday, comes from Inya, which is 4. And Friday is Kuramko Kasanu. Kasanu comes from Isanu, which is 5. I had definitely talked about this when I was talking about the counting episode. I said that that episode was very important and we will keep on referring back to it. So if you have not watched that episode, kindly go back and do yourself a favor by watching that episode, because the following episodes will also be referring back to that specific episode on Kutala. So it's very important for you to refer back to it. Saturday is referred to as Kufula Ngubo or Jumamosi. So we usually use those two terms interchangeably. Some people can say Ituku Jakufula Ngubo or Jumamosi. They mean exactly the same thing. You could be wondering, what's the meaning of Kufula Ngubo? That simply translates to kufua nguo in Kiswahili. So you will realize that in most homesteads, Saturdays were meant for doing laundry. That's the name, kufula nguo. Sunday is referred to as itukuja Jumwa or Jumapili. So we use those two terms interchangeably. Now, whatever I have just talked about entails the modern day week. That is the 7-day cycle. But do you know what? The Taita community had their own cycle of naming the days and counting days. That is before colonization. So we didn't have the 7-day cycle, but we had a 4-day cycle. And I will be giving you a little write-up that I have done concerning the same. I will actually not narrate it, but I will read it out to you so that I don't miss out on anything. But before I do that, I'd like to mention something that is very crucial. If you look at the logo of Kidawida, there are two things that stand out on that logo. If you have not noticed or you have not checked at that logo, you can have a look at it now. The first thing that stands out is the illustration of a book, and that is very obvious. That simply speaks for the purpose of this channel. That is teaching the language, learning Kidawida. Leave that alone. Look at the background of that logo. What can you see? There is an illustration of the dwelling place of the community whose language we are learning about. The Taita community resides in Taita, which is very hilly. We have very many hills. So it's very important for me to mention that because at some point when I'm explaining about the 4-day cycle, I'll be mentioning about the lowland regions. I'll also talk about the hilltops. So if you don't really know what we are talking about, or if you don't really know that the community resides on the hills, then you might miss out or you might not get the accurate information that you need to get. So with that information, I believe that we are good to go. So let me read the write-up that I did so that you can learn about the 4-day cycle that existed in the Taita community before colonization, before the 7-day cycle of the week. In the ancient days, Kidawida used to herd their livestock at Maranu. Maranu refers to a place that was constructed for the purpose of herding livestock and was usually away from the homesteads. In most regions, Maranu was situated on the lowland regions in Kidawida. However, some people had their Maranu at the hilltops where most homesteads were located. Herding of livestock, which is known as Ndisha in Kidawida, is a task that was allocated for men and young men in the Kidawida community. Some men preferred to carry out this task communally. Therefore, they would team up with 2 or more other people so as to take care of their livestock in one Maranu. This was carried out in turns of 4 days. Each person would herd the livestock for 4 days, then hand over to another person. Interestingly, the 4-day cycle is what dictated how the ancient people used to count their days then. That cycle is what formed an equivalent of what we have as the current day week. The 4 days were named like this. We had Ndisha Jimweri. That was the first day. Ndisha Kavi. That was the second day. Ndishakadadu, that was the third day. Ituku jakana or Ituku jambula, or also known as Ituku jepwanyasaru, that was the fourth day. And the fourth day was meant for cleaning maranu. It is the day when manure was being collected. And this is actually captured in the name of that day, Ituku jepwanyasaru. That simply translates to a day that was meant for collecting manure. Saru is manure. Pwanya is to collect or gather. So the person that was meant to take care of the livestock for those 4 days will do so for those 4 days. And on the last day, they would collect the manure, or rather clean the maranu, so as to prepare for the next cycle. So as they were handing over the cycle to someone else, they made sure that the place was well cleaned for the next person to take over. Let's continue with the little write-up that I did. It's worth to note that the 4-day cycle was used across the entire Kidawida region, and that is what guided how people would plan their meetings and events. If people wanted to meet, they would say, Ipwanendisha kadadu, or Ituku jambula, and they all knew the day that they were referring to. Lipwane simply means to let's meet. So the 7-day cycle did not exist for the Taita community during the ancient days. So they only had the 4-day cycle. And I have not had this in any other community. So in case you are from a different community and you had something similar to this, you can share with us so that we can learn together. In case you're wondering where I got this information from, I got this information from my gold. Chuo cha Mizango na Mazara Kidawida Rakfuma Kokala by Frank Mcharo, my legend. So this is an excerpt that I have gotten from this book. It's on page 60 for those that would want to refer to it. Page 60, he was talking about how people used to herd and do farming in the ancient days. And that's how he talked about the 4-day cycle. And I thought it was very important for me to share this because it's a very unique thing and it's fascinating to me. So that's what I had prepared for today. In case you have any question, always feel free to reach out to me, either on the number that has been provided on the screen, or via the email, or also via the comment section. Thank you so much for the continued support that you've been showing me. Thank you for the feedback. We are almost hitting 300 subscribers on YouTube. Let's keep doing this. Let's keep sharing. Let's keep learning Kidawida together, and see you in my next one. Bye.